So yeah, I have my pattern ready. This is the front pattern and this is the back pattern. Welcome back to my channel, Abby Pattern Drafts. It's good to be with you here again. If this is your first time of being on this channel, you're very welcome. So today we'll be learning how to cut a basic pant. And so if you're wondering how this whole block was being drafted, it will be good for you to watch my previous video on how to draft a basic pant. When you're done watching that video, you can come back to this video. So to start with, you need your tracing wheel. You definitely need your fabric, of course. So I had a whole lot of this fabric left over, so I decided to use this African print for this pants. So I had gone ahead to add 2.5 inches to the bottom part of this pant, and that's because I need a form of sewing allowance, folding allowance rather, so that by the time I turn it in, I wouldn't be making my stitch very close to the hemline. I hope you understand how that works. If you have a pant, you can go right ahead to check your pant and see where the stitch is. And if it's a pant that doesn't have a stitch, you probably have a pant that has an invisible stitch, or a hem gum was used to, put it in place. So whichever one you want to use, either what you're using a hem gum to put it in place, or you're going to use a stitch, you would definitely need as much folding allowance as this. Let's say 2.5 inches, fine. So I want to extend it because it's going to be for the back part and the front part as well. This is how I always like to do it. And then I'll be tracing the exact marks with my tracing wheel. And I'll do the same for the pink line, which represents the back block of this pants. So I already have the marks indicating where the punctures are with my tracing wheel that has a spike. So I'll use my marker to trace them out with my ruler. And then I'll do for the front parts as well. Please do well to follow the punctures you're seeing. Don't do otherwise. There's a reason why we folded the pattern in the first place. If you notice, the lines are not really straight, and that's because we took consideration to the fact that by the time we fold it in, we will not be having shortage of fabric. The wideness, because here kind of seem wider than this bottom part. This is the fly zipper. It's usually used to attach the zip. So for someone that doesn't want the zip to be in front, at the center front, some people, you see some pants that the zip is attached to the side. So if you want the zip to be attached to the side, you wouldn't need to place a fly zipper. All you need to do is just do away with the fly zipper and just go right ahead with the curves on the front, center front. So all you will be doing is to just add the sewing allowance if you're not attaching the zip to the front. But for this video, we'll be using the fly zipper. What you want to do next is to transfer, because we have the front block and the back block at the same place. So we want to transfer this block to another pattern paper, to the front part separately and to the back part separately, and we'll add our sewing allowances on that pattern paper. So here I have a pattern paper. I'll place my pattern paper like so. My pattern paper, that's the new one I brought in just now, is not enough, but that shouldn't be a problem. So all we need to do is just to add some extra piece of paper to extend it so that it can take up all this block that we have here, as well as sewing allowances. So this should be enough. So I have gone ahead to use tape to attach the two pattern papers together. So please ignore all the rough look. It's just me improvising, and that's what you should basically do. Paper, if you have extra pieces of pattern paper left over, you can attach it, provided it gives you exactly what you want. You're good to go. So I just decided to use the side for the front and use the side for the back. If you don't have this particular tracing wheel that has a spike, you can go ahead to use the one that has a blunt edge. I think I have one here. So whichever one you want to use. But the thing is, if you're using this one, then you would definitely need to use like a tracing paper so that you can transfer the marks you have on with the tracing paper. So you just put the tracing paper beneath, and when you go like this, the mark will appear beneath. If you using this, all you need to do is make sure that the spikes are going in between it, so that when you are done, you'll be using the punctures of the tracing wheel to guide yourself. Okay, so I'm going right ahead to trace out the front part. It's as easy as ABC. Just be careful, take it easy. So all I just did was to trace out the edges of the green marks. I also traced out the center line of the front, because I would want that to be a guide when I'm attaching the zip. That was why I traced that. But aside that, I just traced the edges of the green marks. So I'm just using my French curve and my ruler to guide the marks. Also add sewing allowance to the edges. 1/2 inch is fine. So I've gone ahead to add 1/2 inch sewing allowance to the edges. I added to the top, but I did not add to the bottom. Remember, we added 2.5 inches to the bottom part, which is for the sewing allowance and the folding allowance. The 1/2 inch is for the sewing allowance, and the 2 inches is for the folding allowance. So for the back pattern, I'll be doing the top part here and the bottom part here. This is because I have more space at this side than this side. This is just to manage my pattern paper. But if you have a wider pattern paper, you really don't need to do this. I'm tracing the dots as well here. So make sure you trace the dots for the back. So there's something to take note about this that area. If you notice, I didn't when I was adding my sewing allowance, the half-inch sewing allowance, I did not extend it to touch where the dart is. That is because this I want to create a form of arc. And the reason for this arc is if I don't put this arc, by the time I'm done stitching, like sewing my dart in, the line, that's the top line, will not align well. So one part will be shorter than the other side. Wherever there's that, always do well to add a form of arc. And when I say arc, it's just a little allowance. That's it basically. So when I'm cutting, I will not just cut like this. So I will just, cut and follow the arc. Just room basically to give the dart a form of space. So when I'm done stitching my dart, I can now make the line straight. So now it's time to cut our pattern. So I'm just cutting right through on the sewing allowance edge. So yeah, I have my pattern ready. This is the front pattern and this is the back pattern. So you'll be wondering, why did we have to first of all draft the block on this paper before transferring to this pattern paper? So actually, because this one, the front block guided us in having an accurate block for the back pattern. In other words, we first of all drafted the front block and then we used the measurements from the front block to draft the back block, which actually makes the measurements more accurate. So this would always be like your guide. You can as well just go ahead to directly transfer on your fabric and then add your sewing allowances. And I've gone ahead to fold my fabric into two. So this is one and this is two. So the thing is, if you want your whatever fabric you're using, you want the design of the fabric to be positioned in a certain way, make sure you're folding that fabric in that manner.